Welcoming now David Weinstein. He's a former federal prosecutor. David, are you with us?
I am.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. So first, just to start, what is your overall take on these three new indictments on gun-related charges for Hunter Biden, the president's son?
Well, when we spoke about this last week, we talked about the fact that they were rushing to get something in place so that they could hold it there because the statute of limitations was coming to run up. It's essentially the same charge, just put three different ways. The third and final charge in the indictment alleges that he possessed a firearm on a specific date when he was an admitted addict to controlled substances. The first two counts charge that he falsely made representations on a form he signed when he bought the gun earlier that same month. These are all separate and individual charges, but they're all related to the same firearm, his possession of the same firearm, and the fact that he was an admitted addict of controlled substances. Now, it's going to subject him to a potential term of incarceration based on the number of counts that are now alleged. It all arises out of the same act, and it ultimately doesn't foreclose the possibility that the special prosecutor won't still cut a deal with him to resolve this now indicted case, the tax case, and then whatever other charges the special prosecutor might be looking into.
Do you think, David, there are more indictments coming? I think that's the big question for a lot of folks. Are there more on the way?
Well, only the special prosecutor and the grand jurors know the answer to that. But I have to believe that he's conducting an investigation into Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings, and that if there is another indictment, that's what that indictment will be about. But I'm not aware of what he's uncovered yet, what information he has. We only know the allegations. But if there is another indictment, that's what that indictment will be focused on.
The thing, we were talking about this, Kelly, a little bit, and David, your perspective on this would be is that this didn't necessarily have to happen, right, for Hunter Biden. This all, to be clear, could have been avoided if that plea deal, stayed in place. We didn't have to be here today. Is that fair?
That's an absolutely fair and accurate statement. But remember, his lawyers couldn't tie down a guarantee that he wouldn't be charged in some additional case and that any statements he was making couldn't be used against him. And so they tried to secure that immunity. And at that point in time, the special prosecutor wasn't the special prosecutor. And Mr. Weiss wasn't in a position to guarantee that. And so Hunter Biden's attorneys did for him the best thing they could do with no guarantee in place.
But now they have limited options, right? Is the point. They have very limited options as in representing
Absolutely.
him. Yeah.
So I have a question that sort of permeates the legal and goes to the argument that we've heard from the Trump team, talking about the fact that the DOJ is weaponized against them specifically. What do you think that does, if anything, to this conversation, these new indictments? Does that have an impact in any way, David?
It certainly rebuts that allegation because they're not focusing on anybody on either side of the aisle. They're taking evidence, they're presenting it to grand jurors, and if the grand jurors believe that there's a true bill or a crime there, they're returning indictments. I think it cuts down against that argument that they're only looking at one side of the aisle.
What's the conversation today, do you think, in the White House counsel's office? As we said earlier, there's no evidence that we know of that directly connects the president's son with the president in any shape or form that's been presented to us, at least. But if you're in the White House counsel's office or, I guess, President Biden's private attorneys as well, what types of conversations do you think they would be having upon hearing this news?
I think they're offering them the kind of condolences and the kind of reaction that anybody would have when they have to talk about someone whose child has now been indicted and charged with a crime. As an attorney, I go through that all the time with the parents of people who I represent. I tell them that I feel for them and that I'm sorry that this happened to their child. But with regard to what else they might be giving in terms of legal advice, I think their advice is the same as it was before this all happened. The truth will come out. We need to cooperate with any subpoenas that are received to the extent we're not going to object based on executive privilege or any other objection that there might be. And that, we're sorry that this happened to your family. And we understand that as a parent, you're going to stand behind and support your son.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.